So generally, you take the rulerships and you set them both aside, and you kind of glance to see which ones has the most planets underneath that its rules. So you can see that quite quickly, but then you've got to organize which one influences who and see the structure of the layers of influence. It's like if the oldest brother gets hit by the father, then he'll turn and hit the younger brother, who turns around and hits the baby sister, or yells at the baby sister, who turns around and kicks the dog, and like you have a hierarchy of power. But we're seeing different dimensions, different planets, different beings. This is different effects of the gods or the beings, or these, whether you call them gens or angels, or whether you call them planetary consciousnesses or psychological complexes. I like dimensions of consciousness, of just layers of consciousness, but we have some layers being more predominant than others, and they affect how we process. Me with my Mars moon rulership, it's a very different thing than this person who has the Mercury and the Venus rulerships. How I'm thinking, what do I want, what do I like, and how do I think about it? These are the two different areas. They work incredibly. So the Venus, what I want, it's in Taurus. I know what I like this, I like this. But depending on what you like, it's going to immediately affect Saturn and Uranus. So the Saturn is, this isn't good enough. If I like this, is it really good enough? They can be, if I don't have what I want, it's going to get really serious. If I'm not satisfied, it's going to have really serious, it's going to get serious. If I am, it could be very ambitious. I want something, so then I'm going to get ambitious. There's the Saturn being affected by the Venus. We already seen the actual mechanics. We see the Venus up in the 9th house. Where's the Saturn? Saturn is in the 8th house, just. So that restricts the money or the finances, but it's okay, so I did something was wrong when I do this chart. When I do the intermediate, the 10th, there's something wrong with the houses, the overlay of the houses. You said at midheaven is correct, but the 11th house cusp was put in the wrong place. It should have been over more. So you can see the two lines where these are. So anyways, that's okay. Saturn's in the 8th, the Venus is in the up in the 9th, and there's your Venus. It's opposed by Neptune and Mars, so you think, whoa, you see a lot of stress on that Venus. But the Saturn is still in Taurus. The Saturn's being ruled by the Venus. So what I want, however diluted, it's going to take time. I'm going to have to make an effort to get it. But the wants will determine the work that has to be done. And the risks and the excitements one might go for. But the Mercury, the thinking, that's in the 10th house. What job, what work, and it's in Gemini. So it's thinking, I want to have my own independent thing. I want to work with my own ideas. And these are all people who are studying astrology, right? So you can see how I could be an astrologer. You can see how their approach to working with astrology, but the way one's thinking, good and bad, will affect one's understanding, will affect one's status, will affect one's power complex, will affect one's identity. So there's going to be a lot of the thinking immediately goes to what can I do? But right and wrong thinking, who around influence, who's listening to me, who am I listening to, what's accomplished, what's to be done, what's the plan, the Mercury up in the 10th house. I want to make the plan, say what needs to be done. It's kind of an authoritative thing, being in that 10th house, sort of Saturnian accomplishment house. So that you can see the Mercury coming down to Jupiter. Then once I have the idea, can I understand, can I see where I can go? Once I get the idea, can I see how can I expand on it, where I can do it? Can I really push for it? Can I make this happen? Yes. The Venus has already wants something, so it has a plan. The Mercury is thinking about the plan and trying to expand on it, see what has to be done to achieve it. And once you can see the plan and what has to be done, the Jupiter will guide the Mars. Here the Mars will align to the Jupiter. If the Jupiter is wrong, then Mars will get wrong, but if the Jupiter is right, and the Jupiter is following the Mercury, which is a bit of a puzzle, because really Mercury should be guided by the wisdom, but here the wisdom is guided by the knowledge. So Jupiter then encourages the Mars, then she gets going on it, then she'll adjust her lifestyle accordingly and push to live up to it. And then once that's all done, she'll get the confidence she needs. So confidence is a low point on the totem pole. So that's the Cancer security. The friends will come in, but the choices, Venus, and the thinking will be the predominant factor here. Okay, just different examples, because once you see a few examples, you won't be so intimidated about working. Well, I probably have, you won't be so, for the people in the webinar, I have yours, you've been doing it, but for other people watching this, you won't be so intimidated by figuring out your own. You just take another sheet of paper and you draw it. You know, like I did it using Photoshop to make a drawing so it can look neat and look for you. But really, you just take a piece of paper and draw it on. And you see this takes a couple of minutes, but then you have to think about it for a while. And the story about it, it grows. You'll be able to see the insights in it over the years. You understand it differently. You see it better. So I'm old enough now that I've done enough. I can sort of see these patterns a little bit better. Astrology really was made for senior citizens to be able to understand their life and put it in order, to be able to take their spiritual jump and understand the deeper sides before they let go of their life, let go of the body. It's questionable how much we can listen, how much we can learn as we're younger, but how do you measure that? Okay, here we go. We're looking around. We've got Mercury in Cancer, Sun in Cancer, July 23rd, 67, Shanghai. Okay. Jupiter in Leo, Venus, Uranus, Pluto in Virgo, Midheaven in Libra, ruled by Venus. Mars is in Scorpio. Okay, so there's one rulership, Neptune in Scorpio, Sag rising, Moon in Aquarius, Saturn in Aries. There's only one ruler, only the Mars in Scorpio is the ruler here. So we start with the Mars. And the Mars, what's in the Mars signs of Scorpio is Neptune, the beliefs, and Saturn's in Aries. So the experiences, what one's doing, will lead to repercussions of what you have. I have to work, I'm doing this, oh, I'm going to have to do this. I moved here, I went there, I did this, now I have to catch up, I have to find a job, I have to do something, how do I maintain it? So the working is always keeping up to what I'm doing or what I want to be doing, how I'm being active. So the action leads to time demands. Once the time demands get set in, I got the job, I'm holding it, now where am I going to live? Then the time demands begin to affect how one lives. And it's going to be more tendency to be more modest because the Saturn's there, it has to adjust to the time demands. It's not the other way around where how you're living is determining. Here, what you're doing is determining your commitments. Then your commitments determine where you live or how you're living or how you're feeling. So if someone had a complex with this, she's not going to solve things by just sitting at home and dieting. That's not going to solve it. She's going to have to find some physical exercise or something to do, some yoga or Tai Chi or something, and that would center the energy, other than just putting it out to work or sex or relationships. Energy, desire, for experience. Don't tell me I can't do something. That's the Mars and Scorpio. I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you. And then, but there's going to be some expectations with it because of Neptune that follow from what one does, and the expectations of commitment. I did this for you, now you're going to marry me, now we're going to be together, what's going to happen? And based on that, you can set up these commitments and you don't feel exactly like this is that comfortable, this is that secure. The commitments will determine the lifestyle, which can make the Saturn can restrict the habits and the feelings. And those restricted feelings can affect one's confidence and one's understanding and therefore one's identity. At the same time, those feelings are going to determine the way one thinks. The memories and the moods are going to affect the way one thinks. The way one thinks is going to bring up power struggles and fears, anxieties and shocks, need for excitement is going to be based on those thoughts. And if they're negative, those are going to be negative factors. If it hits the Mercury, the thoughts and the strategy are going to say, well, what do I want? Like what I want is going to be based on what I'm thinking, which is going to be based on what I'm doing. So I'm having to adjust all these other things based on what I'm doing. So there's always a catch up when you got Mars on the top, you're doing, and then you're having to understand and deal with the results later. So who you are and what you're doing isn't the primary factor, or what your status is, or how much you're being paid, or what's right or wrong. There's a right or wrong. You go back up the tree, He says the confidence, the thinking, it depends on how I'm living. If I'm not living right or living too restricted, how can I think right or be confident? But the feelings and the closeness and the needs to be with someone or be close, that would be need for security. That's going to affect the confidence and the playfulness and the imagination, the thinking, more than the other way around. That's going to be affected by what commitments come in, which is based on what you've done and where you go. I mean, as soon as you know the person, you know what's going on, this begins to translate into experience. You can see this, but when we're talking just cold off the top from the chart to this, I can just point it out like this. We'll have a few charts that we can see when we're doing Trumps and Freuds and Jungs. We'll see we have a character, we have stories, we can talk around it to see it better. Are we over time? Okay, good. Okay, so here, what do we got? We got July 31st, 1967, Wiesbaden, Germany. Okay, so this is a Leo chart. There's a one rulership, the sun rules Leo. Mercury's in Cancer, ruled by the moon. The moon's in Taurus, ruled by Venus. Saturn's in Aries. Neptune's, Mars is in Scorpio, so we got a Mars rulership. Venus, Libra, ascendant ruled by Venus. Venus in Virgo. So, okay, so we have a sun and Mars. This is powerful combination. So those are our two rulers. It starts with the sun and Mars. But look what happens. The sun rules Jupiter, nothing else in Jupiter. And Jupiter rules Sag and Pisces. There's nothing in Sag and Pisces. So Jupiter rules nothing. So the confidence and Jupiter and the sun are conjunct here. So this is generally lucky. There's a good understanding with this. There's an opportunities and good understanding. So the confidence leads to the understanding. Because of the Jupiter's in Leo, like if the sun and Jupiter were conjunct in Sag, the understanding would guide the confidence or the ego. Here, the ego determine the ego and the confidence, or the lack of confidence or the lack of ego, will determine the understanding. So the sun and the confidence and what's noble and what's playful, what's creative, what that noble side of things will determine the lack of nobility will determine a lack of noble understanding. Whoa. So there's always this understanding is always going to be subjective. I'm trying to understand what I'm doing. What's important to me? This is important. I know it's important, but is it right? Is it wrong? What am I doing? Where am I going? This understanding is always the undercurrent inside that sun. When it's confident, this will shine. When it's not confident, when there's difficulties in the heart, there'll be difficulties trying to understand why. Piles of difficulties, Jupiter. Okay, that's one side. So that might be just somebody leaves the country, leaves home, leaves the country they're born in, and is trying to understand, here I am, now what? So that you can see ethnic challenges or changes across languages or cultures being tied into that. Now, her Mars is also very strong. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do things. And once she decides what she do, she'll work very hard at it, but she'll have expectations behind it. I'm working really hard at this and expecting things. And the Saturn and Neptune, if it were just Saturn, it would be more direct work. I'm going to work at this. I got to keep up. I got to work at doing this. But Neptune is, do I really want to do that much work? Do I really want to do this? I expected this. They're not doing this. Why should I bother? So Neptune here, both Neptune and Saturn, both being influenced by Mars more than the other way around, they kind of spin into each other. And the Neptune was going one way, saying, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I should. So it can accept commitments less than, well, we'll see what we can do inside this complicated situation.